My name is Kenny Renaud. Je m'appelle Kenny Renaud. My literacy journey began, surprisingly, in Haiti. I was born here in Miami, Florida. My mother passed away, and shortly after, I was sent to Haiti to live with my extended family. And so my first language I was exposed to was Creole and French. I found out from my father just recently that French was the first language I began reading at. I was sent to Jinyu Elementary in Haiti at the age of 3.5 or 4, and I was progressing pretty well. I asked them if I was a good reader, but at the time they wouldn't really tell you whether you're a good reader or a bad reader. In 1991 in Haiti, there was a coup d'etat. It's essentially like a civil war of sorts, and I was evacuated from there just about as things got really hairy. And for whatever reason, once I came to America and I was exposed to more reading or to anything that had to do with Haitian or French culture, I kind of pulled away. I would stutter when trying to speak or read in Creole or in French. So, of course, I was in America. I was learning a lot more English, and I gravitated towards that. I absolutely loved to read. One of the first things that I started to read were comic books. Comic books were very American, having superheroes and having Archie, so I really embraced that, and it gave me something to fall back on with the pictures, so even if I wasn't able to understand. And I think that was the basis, and it shaped a lot of the person I am today. So, kind of make this interesting show and tell. This is me as a baby, and I adorable. Most of the things that I read that are, outside of the picture books had to do with certain superheroes. Not all of them, didn't really care for everyone. The ones that I really focused on were the X-Men. The X-Men are mutants, and what makes them significant in the world of superheroes is that, they're outcasts. No one really likes them. They're all very different. And I felt that way coming to America, not having English as my first language, and not really fitting in. I went to a private school at first, and it was a bilingual private school in Miami, Jose Marti, and I was just really there because my father had remarried, and his wife's daughter was going to the school, and they needed somewhere for me to be. Then I was placed into public school, and I started kindergarten again. So I felt as though I was progressing very well because essentially I was going through the same lessons twice, once in Haiti and again in America. So I was alone a lot, with my father being a single father, me not having a really close relationship with my stepmother, and reading was something that it was an escape from the reality of my world. And I would never stop reading. Didn't matter if they took me to a theme park, if I was sitting in the car, I would be reading. My father had told me that I would ask them to turn off the music so that I could focus on the reading when I was sitting in the car, or otherwise I'd just go to sleep. Especially if it was Haitian or French music, I really felt uncomfortable with it. Psychologically, I guess I was trying to process. This is all news to me now. Quite the comic book and superhero freak. I still have these action figures from my childhood, and if I still had my childhood imagination, I'd probably still play with them. Sadly, I do not. What's next? I never stopped reading, and I wanted to become a comic book artist when I was a kid. I took art classes. I would always color. I'd always have either a book or a comic book or a coloring book. I had to express myself, or I had to really be engaged by something that was really, really interesting. Normal books weren't really my thing. But when I was younger, during the summers, I would spend time with my aunt, and she would have her kids spend at least 30 minutes a day reading, so that was really boring for me. My cousin Daphne, she loved to read. She made me look really bad, so of course I pretended to read, so she's sitting there with her R.L. Stein books, so I'd sit there with some of her R.L. Stein books and just flip through the pages. Never really sat through one of those books, but they all thought I was reading. Eventually, I finally got so bored with just flipping through pages for 30 minutes every single day that I started reading one of her books, because they were the only books I had. My other cousin, Greg, was significantly younger than us, so I really didn't want to sit through Dr. Seuss books again. This was a book series called Daughters of the Moon. Sounds very much like Twilight and all those other, love, sappy vampire, blah, blah, blah. It's about Greek mythology, and so, the girls were different. They had abilities kind of connected to the X-Men, and so this is actually the only book series that I've ever read entirely, and I still have all the books, which is really cool. Going beyond that, in middle school, they had us read books like Hatchet and The Giver, and I really did enjoy those books, but I probably would never read them if I was forced to. In high school, I really started focusing on theater because I wanted more of an escape, and so almost everything I read that wasn't strictly for the classroom was a play, and I was really big on whether it was on being on stage or being off stage and doing the behind-the-scenes directing or stage direction, all those different things. So that's mostly what I did in high school. There were a couple of books that they assigned us to read in high school that I did enjoy, and most of the time it was ones like The Supernatural, House of Spirits. Really great book. If you haven't read it, go pick it up. Don't watch the movie. It's not as great. And I didn't even know the movie was there. Had I known, I probably would never have read the book in high school, but I'm really glad that I did. Since then, in college, you ruined me. I have never had any opportunities to read anything of my own interest outside of comic books, which I don't even get a chance to purchase anymore because I'm so poor, so I read them online. And aside from that, now in work, they've placed us into some different courses, like Dale Carnegie, so a lot of the readings that I've had have been about, making friends and influencing people, about sales strategies, and the wisdom of the age. I haven't even picked up this one yet. I want it, so maybe one day I'll flip it up. It all essentially comes down for the comic books for me. Everything I do is pretty much related to that interest. All the movies that I watch and own, all the video games that I play, heck, the underwear that I buy, the shirts that I wear. So that's basically my reading journey. You know, it started off in French, which I had no idea. I found out yesterday from my father, who I don't really have a very close relationship with. So we had a conversation via text message, one of the first ones we've had in several years. So I appreciate this assignment because it is building that relationship a little closer, and it's allowing me to really see, you know, a lot of people in my family especially would harass me or would really harp on the fact that I am one of the few who do not speak Creole or do not utilize French, even though it was one of my first language. And so I never really thought about why. I always assumed, well, I was in America and I just focus on English, but there was a deep-rooted psychological component to that there, and I've been able to, you know, really dissect that and think about it, and now that I know that was the source, maybe I can go back and revisit and, you know, build on what I knew at the time. So hopefully you've enjoyed my literacy journey, and I opted to make this a blog versus writing because I assume you have plenty of things to read already, and this might be a quicker process for you, even though, well, 8 minutes long. That's a whole lot of talking. Sorry.